Ask Modi what has caused him the most pain lately, and it is none other than the Indo-Pakistani air war that broke out in May 2025. In this air war, India was shot down by Pakistan's Chinese-made fighters, but did not shoot down a single Pakistani fighter. The bottom line is that this air war should have also made Modi realize once and for all that China is not that easy to mess with. After all, Pakistan's Chinese-made fighter jets are not the most advanced, but the most backward of the three Musketeers of the Chinese Air Force. The current three Musketeers of the Chinese Air Force mainly refers to the J-20, J-16 and J-10C fighters, and the one used by Pakistan is the foreign trade version of the J-10C, the J-10C smallest, in terms of radar size and avionics bulk. The J-20 is a fifth-generation aircraft, and the most powerful air superiority fighter in the world today. But take J-20 out is really some bullying. After all, the current India does not have a fifth-generation aircraft, mainly equipped with Russia's Su-30 Mki, and France's Rafale this fourth-generation aircraft. Then we will take China's fourth-generation aircraft out in India then. At present, China has several models of fourth-generation aircraft in service. J-16 is one of them, and this warplane, whether it is the number or the performance of a single machine, are far more than India's hands of the fourth-generation machine. In terms of quantity, the total number of J-16 fighters in service in China should have exceeded 300, reaching a level close to 400. In comparison, as of May 2025, the total number of Su-30 Mki's in India's hands is more than 270, and the total number of Rafale fighters is 36 units. The total number of these two fighters combined is just about 310. In terms of quantity alone, the J-16 is close to 100 aircraft more than the two fourth-generation aircraft in India's hands, and the current J-16 continues to be produced, and the number continues to rise. With the passage of time, the number of Chinese and Indian fourth-generation aircraft will be further expanded. In terms of individual performance, J-16 has a very obvious advantage in avionics. In terms of radar, India's Su-30 Mki uses passive, phased array radar, but J-16 is equipped with active phased array radar, which is one generation ahead of Su-30 Mki in terms of technology and in terms of other avionics such as airborne computers, electro-optical detection systems, data chains, navigation systems, etc. The J-16 has a very clear advantage. For the Rafale, although the Rafale is also equipped with active phased array radar, its radar is still behind the J-16, because the active phased array radar of the J-16 uses gallium nitride as the raw material of T-R components, while the active phased array radar of the Rafale uses gallium arsenide as the raw material of T-R components. The former, compared to the latter, has a greater power, long duration of operation and other advantages in technology, is clearly ahead of half a generation. In addition, the Rafale, because of the body shape of the reason, the radar size is also subject to great restrictions, resulting in its radar size than our J-10C is even smaller, not to mention in J-16 comparison. So it can be seen that China's J-16 fighters have suppressed India's fourth-generation aircraft, both in terms of individual performance and quantity. India can't even deal with the J-10C in Pakistan's hands, and after this air battle, it will know that the J-16 in China's hands is even worse. In fact, when it comes to the performance of the J-16, there is another interesting thing, that is, the follow-up of China's imitation of the Su-27 fighter aircraft back then. We all know that China once bought the production line and production license of Su-27 from Russia and copied this warplane. The Su-27 that China copied was the J-11. Originally, according to the agreement, China should produce about 200 J-11, but after producing 105 of this type of fighter, China felt that the performance of this fighter could not meet its own needs, so it improved and upgraded it. The upgraded version of the domestically produced Su-27 is the J-11B, whose avionics have been greatly improved compared to the J-11, and its air combat capability has been strengthened considerably. However, the Russian side believes that China's production of J-11B violates the agreement, so there is a dispute with China on this matter. The subsequent process of resolving the dispute between the two sides was complicated, but it is certain that one of the conditions under which Russia allowed China to continue to produce the J-11B was that it would not allow China to sell this type of fighter jet outside the country. The core reason behind this is that China's Su-27 fighters are far superior in performance to Russia's Su-27s, and Russia is worried that China's sale of such fighters will affect its own military trade. China's J-16 fighter jet is actually a fighter jet that has absorbed the design technology of the Su-27 and adopted a large number of domestically produced bombs. So the J-16 should also be limited by the agreement between China and Russia, cannot be sold abroad. However, although the J-16 is not sold outside, but the world on the performance of the J-16 how to know very well. There is even a saying in American military fan circles that the best hawk is in the United States, but the best sidewinder is not in Russia. The meaning of this sentence is that the most advanced F-15 is still produced by the United States, but China's production of the side of the fighter system, that is, J-16, its performance indicators crushed all the Russian production of the side of the fighter system. This status quo makes India in the future of Air Force development will always be China on the head, because India's Air Force development of this country all rely on the purchase of warplanes from abroad. At present, India can produce the most advanced fighter aircraft. Is the famous Glory fighter? The performance index of this warplane can hardly be said to be a third-generation aircraft, and the glory of the warplane cannot be counted as India's completely localized warplane. This thing a lot of core parts, or from foreign countries to buy. Under this background, the Indian Air Force to be able to compete with the Chinese Air Force can only buy advanced fighter aircraft from abroad. In the development of the Air Force, can barely and can be compared to China's three countries, respectively, the United States, Russia and France. Russia is India's current most dependent country, but also on India's sale of warplanes to minimize restrictions on the country. But in these three countries, Russia and France in the technological development, and China has produced a clear gap. Currently China has been able to produce advanced 5th-generation aircraft, and even has made the first flight of a 6th-generation aircraft, while France cannot even produce 5th-generation aircraft, although Russia has produced a 5th-generation aircraft, Su-57 fighter, but the performance of the fighter can hardly be said to be a 5th-generation aircraft. So in the future, if the IAF wants to continue to face off with the Chinese Air Force, it will have to find a way to buy more advanced fighters from the United States. But the US has great restrictions on exporting advanced equipment, and its 5th-generation aircraft, the F-35, has never been sold to a non-allied country. So the situation facing the IAF in the future will only get worse, and the gap between the IAF and the Chinese Air Force will only get wider.